Are you sick of being told what you can and can't think? We live in a time where censorship is becoming the norm. When you silence a view and you silence an opinion, you lose the opportunity to understand what their viewpoint is, and you may miss critical details. Not to mention, you lose the opportunity to speak to them reasonably and correct their thinking from your point of view. What we really need for a healthy, balanced society is open discourse and freedom of speech. This allows both sides to argue their points, and we come to a more reasonable solution to the problem and a better understanding of what the actual issues are. Jess Randle healed many of her issues by just eating meat. She cut out all of the vegetables in her diet and anything that wasn't meat-based, and she healed herself. That's not the kind of thing you're going to hear in the mainstream media. So, I'm not here to tell you what to eat or what to think or what to drink or what to do. I'm just here to show you different perspectives. Let's have a listen. And just back to the journalism stuff, like, we hear so much in the media, and I bang on about it in this podcast all the time, and people are probably really bored of hearing it, but banging on about, we get this message consistently in the media that animals are causing climate change, meat is bad for our diet. You will kill two birds with one stone if we get rid of the meat. And there's that side of the media, and then there's the other side of the media where it's more sort of independent journalists who are saying, look, this is not correct. This is there are other things going on. There's other industries that are causing issues. So I'd love to get a take from you about what's going on as a journalism student on what's going on here. Why are the mainstream media talking about it being so damaging, and why we got lots of independent journalists talking about another narrative?
So my opinion is that it just has to do with money and who's in charge. Cattle and stuff, I don't think there's as much money in that as as what they are hoping and planning for, as far as industrialized plant-based meats and things like that. And it's easier to control and own and monopolize and things like that. So I personally think it's about control and about money. And then it keeps us sick and weak, which then gives pharmaceuticals more money because we're dependent on them. And so yeah, so we'll be dependent on the food system. If everything is industrialized and packaged for us, we're dependent on that. We can't grow our own food or rely on the local farmer, and we're weak and sick. And then also, I think it's just important to remember these big corporations and stuff. These journalists work for these people and they do their job. And I think that's kind of sad that they don't have as more integrity, or maybe they do genuinely believe what they're reading off the screen, but that you have to look at who owns the corporation, or who the boss is, and then who's the boss's boss, and who's actually controlling everything, because what their opinion is gonna be what they allow on their television or on their program. And so I think that you see independent journalists being more against the mainstream narrative because they're not really like working for anyone. They don't really have anyone pulling their strings, so they're able to freely go and research and look into this, and they can write what they want without any backlash and without having to fear that they're going to get fired or lose their job. It's more true journalism in my opinion.
Totally. I think it's a self-reinforcing cycle, isn't it? Because once I've heard of journalists in these big news organizations, it may have been the Daily Mail, or it might have been the Guardian or something like that, and a journalist there had wanted to put out a story, and it was deliberately battered down by her editor. And then going forward, she had learnt that those sorts of stories were going to be battered down, so then she began to self-censor. So it's this they might only need to bat a story down once, and then it's like, right, everyone, we know that we're not going to talk about that now. And then everyone starts trying to, and I really don't blame people, because I see it as the same as you. Like, I also see that they're trying to have a career in journalism, and the way to have a career in journalism is to talk about what people are interested in and what is going to get traction and what is being pushed by these big narratives. So they're sort of just playing the game. They're playing the game of getting attention, and they're playing the game of like what's in vogue. And unfortunately, at the moment, in vogue is like veganism and anti-meat and climate change.
Yeah, and it's really sad too, because we learn in journalism too, they kind of make it seem like this is just the best career, the most morally high ethical career that you could have, and we're the backbone of society, and without us the whole picture would crumble. So they kind of prop it up on a pedestal and just make you think that like you're the best thing ever, which I think is just
is that what they tell you in the journalism course?
That's the vibe you get, is that you're very important, and journalism is extremely important and essential, and without it society would collapse, which I do understand in a way. But then
you know what's ironic, sorry, like because you just said it and it sparked it in my head, and I'm like, it's essential, and without it society will collapse. And I'm thinking, hang on, yes, it's essential, and is society collapsing at the moment? Like, you know what I mean? Because there isn't that genuine, like, I think I'm of that mindset where real journalism done well, and like you expose things and you show what's going on, and then people have a chance to genuinely make a decision on how they live their lives based on these revelations that should be pushed out to people independently. And now I'm thinking, hang on, it is a backbone of society, but the backbone seems to have conveniently disappeared.
Yeah, well, it's not the backbone if you're a puppet. And I think one thing that we've lost too is that the whole key to journalism, if you boil journalism down, it is destructive by nature. That is what journalism is. You're pulling at the thread of society. You're constantly trying to pick things apart and pull things apart and expose things. So it is a destructive thing by nature, but it has to be so that you can expose these things and then build up better things. And we are at a point where you are no longer allowed to pick things apart and expose things. So journalism isn't journalism. It's just, they're just mouthpieces.
Just a narrative.
Yeah. So true journalism, or mainstream journalism, isn't real journalism anymore.
Yeah, it was apparent. I think it was going on before the pandemic, but it became really stark in the pandemic when lots of voices were specifically silenced, and very openly silenced. Like, nope, he's not allowed to talk about this. Nope, he's not allowed on this platform. Nope. You know, I mean, not saying I'm a supporter of his, but Donald Trump being kicked off Twitter. And like that was the first starts of it as things were going on. And I think to silence any voice and not have open debate with them and tell them either why they're wrong or listen to their points so that it corrects your thinking is that route to societal collapse.
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary how many people supported that. And even like if you agree or don't agree, it shouldn't have happened, in my opinion. And because that's just one of the fundamentals too of free speech. Free speech only works if you're allowed to speak and the person next to you is allowed to speak something that you don't want to hear. Like free speech only works if we can say things that each person doesn't like, kind of thing. So I definitely, and that's a whole part of the human experience too, is disagreeing with people and hearing different opinions and looking into different things and thinking critically and asking questions. And it seems like you're less and less you're able to do that, which is kind of sad, because if you take that to its logical conclusion, like what kind of society is that? We're just going to all be a bunch of robots that repeat a certain narrative that it comes down from on high, and we just yes, this is bad, this is good, yes. And that's not human, that's robotic. So
that's the whole thing. I think there's people who would love to see that society emerge, you know, and I feel exactly as you just, people at the top, obviously, probably at the top. And I think there's this balance. Like sometimes I think it's really sinister, and sometimes I think this is just how a society develops. You know, like people get to the top with huge vested interests, and then those vested interests naturally want to protect themselves. We've got this whole scheme of economic growth that must be sustained, and you've got these huge pharmaceutical companies, you've got these huge insurance companies, you've got these huge companies that are under huge amounts of pressure to increase revenue and increase revenue at all cost. So there's someone at the top of that who's like, shit, how am I going to do this? And I'm going to have to shit on someone here. And it generally boils down to humans being viewed as numbers on a spreadsheet. You know, like, how did we increase revenue this time? Oh, we did X, Y, and Z, and you know, our numbers went up. So, and then other days I'm like, there's the Illuminati is there, and you know, Klaus Schwab is, you know, sitting in a chair laughing at everyone, and I'm like, sometimes it just, I don't know. What's your take on it?
Um, I don't know. I think the conspiracy theories are fun, and entertaining and stuff. I don't know how much truth there is to it. In all honesty, I think that it just it's just us being humans. And then because you have the people who are just greedy at the top, and they just want the power and they want all the money, and then to do that you have to control the people below you and keep them below you. So you have those people, and then you have the people who will follow what they're told blindly, just listen and follow, and not ever question anything. And so you have those people who are not helping the situation either. But then you have people on the other side who just want to, they just leave me alone, I don't want to be involved, let me live my life. And then that's creating its own issues because you're turning a blind eye and not getting involved. So then all this other stuff can happen. So it's just multiple aspects of just humans being humans, and just creating this massive shit show.
Yeah.
I don't think that we'd be capable of anything else, honestly.
No.
I think we probably could, we could do really great things, but just in my opinion, humans are sinful by nature. So whatever we do try to create, whatever mankind tries to create on its own is always going to fail. It's always going to be imperfect. There's always going to be some sort of destruction to it because we are imperfect beings.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's this process of like, a system works for a bit, and then we need to either create a new system, and it's very hard to pull down the old system without total anarchy. You know,
Yeah.
I think lots of people want a revolution until the revolution is there, and they say, oh my God, take me back to the good old days. So it's, and you never know it's like, better the devil you know, because what comes into that, what fills that space, you know, you only have to look at these dictatorship governments that are toppled, and then suddenly it's like the military in there that are 10 times worse. And I just don't know. I think maybe this is how humans, like you say, how humans naturally progress slowly over a period of time, and we're maybe going to fall into like a big technocracy, which is going to have very centralized power, and then over time, gently, people will sort of fall away from that and form individual communities, and there'll be more localized farming. And I mean, who knows? I mean,
well, I think it's human nature to take everything to the extreme. So just you personally in your personal life, I believe you can have self-control and say, no, I don't want to do that. Yes, I do want to do that. But just on a societal level, I don't think that is ever possible. Just when you get too many humans together, it's just, you naturally take things to the extreme. If you just look at any situation, like whether it be like if a protest breaks out or something like that, and then things start to get rowdy, like there is like a psychological aspect of it, mob mentality, I think it's called,
yeah,
where it's just, it gets taken to the extreme. And so I think that in culture and society, the pendulum is just always swinging back and forth. And I think we're in the process of it swinging one way, and then once it hits that wall, I think it's going to start swinging the other way. And I think it's just constantly, that's why there's the saying of nothing's new under the sun type of thing. And history repeats itself, because we're just swinging back and forth, and we're just like, oh, that didn't work, let's go back here. Oh, that doesn't work, let's. And it's so hard for society to find that balance, which is what we need, and which is a lot of people don't understand is
Mm.
like we need both sides. We need the people over here who have this belief. We need the people over here who have this belief, because it creates that balance. And then if one side starts to have too much power, then things start to go off the rails. And if one side starts to have too much power, things go off the rails. But it's not human nature to be balanced.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that, especially on such a large scale. You know, what are we, 8 billion, 9 billion on the planet? And like, to try and get everyone's viewpoints. And like, my thoughts are that 90% of people are pretty much in the middle, and like, they don't want these extreme swings in, like, you know, politics or overarching technocracy, whereby like all meat is banned, or like all vegetables are banned, or like, you know, we can't have any chemical agriculture, or we can't do any of this, we can't do any of that. Most people are kind of on the fence and kind of understand there's nuance in all of these issues. But for some reason, it's the most vocal grab the microphone and duct tape everyone's mouth and say, you know, this is the way, and march us all, you know, seamlessly into the gates of hell without anyone being able to really do anything against it.
Yeah, that's the part too of the most people, I do agree, are probably have a more nuanced view of the world. And if you actually sit down and talk to them and ask them their opinions, they're pretty balanced. But then those are also the people who won't get involved, and want to just leave me alone, just let me live my life. And so that gets us into another issue, more issues, because they wash their hands, just focused on themselves. So because there is an aspect that of society where community is important, and having a strong community and stuff. And if you just want to just be separated from the community, your community is probably going to get into some trouble. So I think so. It's just, yeah, the people who want that control, and they're going to scream the loudest. And then the people who are more level-headed are the people that are just like, oh, I don't want to deal with it. Just do what you do. Stop screaming at me.
Exactly. I mean, if you think logically, like, certain percentage of people want to go and be engineers, certain amount of people want to go and be doctors, certain amount of people want to go and be, you know, in childcare. And then there's a certain amount of people who are going to want to get to the top of the control structure and pull some levers. So it just is how it is. You just hope that the checks and balances of our governmental systems do, I want to say do their job, but I'd say start to do a better job. But I mean, they're holding up at least a little bit.
Yeah, but it's gonna take people to make that happen, because if we just continue to just wash our hands of it and ignore it, then of course the people who are in control are going to keep taking more and more control. So it takes like a give and take, but the comfort that I always have is that reality always reasserts itself, no matter how crazy things get. Reality will reassert itself. It may get really, really crazy, but I believe that it'll happen. So I'm not extremely freaked out or scared or anything about the future. But but yeah, I do think that people need to start paying more attention, because we were taught to, or you're trained from a young age to listen to authority and just do what you're told, and things like that. So I do think we need to start being a little bit more rebellious and not appealing to authority so much.
100%. I couldn't agree more.